In this video I'm going to continue the theme from the previous one and try to refine the photos a bit more, especially in terms of the softness of the light and of the background. Now we've got the lovely Hannah here with us today as our model, but before I start I'm just going to take a couple of shots of Hannah using the same kind of lighting setup and the same camera and flash settings as I used in the previous video. So let's do that. So I'm just trying to get the exposure sorted out. I've set the camera again to 2/50th of a second, f5.6, ISO 200. But I'll first of all take a shot with the flash turned off, just to make sure there's not too much ambient light getting in the shot. So let's try that. Flash didn't go off. It's not completely black, but it's dark enough. There's hardly any light getting onto Hannah there. So let's try that again with the flashlight on now, and it's set to flash power. It's set to an 1/8 power, and that's a little bit underexposed, isn't it? So all I have to do is up the power of the flash. It's set to an 1/8 at the moment. I'll set it to 1/4 power. Try that again. Yeah, these look a lot better now. That exposure seems about right. Here's the first shot without the flash, just to show that there's hardly any ambient light in the image. If the room you're shooting in is brighter than this one and you're seeing too much ambient light, then try lowering the ISO or closing down the aperture a little. Although that will mean your flash is going to work harder. So the settings I'm using are pretty much optimum for this amount of ambient light, allowing the flash power to be kept quite low. Anyway, back to the main theme of this video. Although the light on Hannah's face is a whole lot softer than it would be without the umbrella, you know, it still isn't quite as soft as it could be. We can do better than this, but I'll come back to that in a minute. To start off with, I want to make the background a little more interesting, maybe a little moodier. And in order to do that, I have to take control of the background. But what do I mean by that? Well, in the shots I just took, the background is a kind of medium grey, maybe a bit darker. But when you think about it, because as you just saw, we're not allowing in any of the ambient light, then without the flash, the background goes very dark. And it wouldn't have mattered, even if it was a white background. It would still have gone very dark if I hadn't used flash. What that tells us is that some of the light from the flash hit the background, or to put it another way, it contaminated the background. Now I want to try to avoid the light from hitting the background, and that will allow me to do other things with it. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, one thing at a time. To take control of the background, I have to prevent it from being contaminated by the light from the flash. And if I can do that, the background should go darker. That's the kind of starting point. It may not go completely black, but it will be darker. But how can I do that? After all, I can't just lower the flash power or close down the aperture. Sure, that would make the background darker, but Hannah would go darker too. She'd be underexposed. I can't adjust the shutter speed. That makes no difference to the flash exposure. Here's what I can do. First of all, I can bring Hannah away from the background a few feet. Right, let's try that, Hannah. So let's move it to about here. Should be about fine, yep. That's pretty obvious really, isn't it? The further away she is from the background, the darker it's going to get due to the light fall off. But not so obvious is bringing the light in closer. Let's bring it in really close. I know that seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? But remember the inverse square law. When the light is closer, it falls off quicker. And look how close it is now. Before it was about 5 or 6 feet away. Now it's only a couple of feet away. So the light is going to fall off to practically nothing before it hits the background. Obviously the light has become more powerful because flash to subject distance has been reduced. So I have to reduce the flash power accordingly. Probably by a stop and a half, maybe a couple of stops. Let's come round here, get out of the way. But not only that, moving the light in closer has another great advantage. It's bigger. Well, it's not really bigger, but in relation to Hannah, it's bigger, which means that the light is going to get softer. In the first shots I took, the light was several feet away. It was only a moderately soft light, but now that it's closer, it looks a lot bigger. Does this look big to you? Like this. Really, it looks really big there, doesn't it? That's the great thing about these shoot-through umbrellas. You can get really close with no danger of the shaft taking out the subject's eyeball, which they might not appreciate. Having said all of that, if you're shooting in a smaller room and there's no space to get the subject away from the background, that might be time to use a reflective umbrella because there's less spill of the light onto the background. And if that still produces too much light onto the background, then try a softbox. The light is far more directional, so even less light is going to fall on the background. But for simplicity, and because I've got the space, I'll continue with the shoot-through umbrella. So let's get the exposure sorted out and we'll get going. So now we've got the umbrella in really close. I've had to reduce the power of the flash, so it's now on a 16th power. It was on a quarter power before, wasn't it? I've kept the camera settings exactly the same. So let's see how this looks. I'm just looking at these images as I edit the video. I'm really pleased with them, bearing in mind it's just one light. Yeah, the background has gone darker, and that means we can now start to do things with it. Also, this demonstrates that you can work in a smallish area without the light contaminating your background. But see how soft that light looks now, with a beautiful transition to the shadow area. Compare it with the shots when the light was further away, you can really see the difference. I'm a big fan of getting the light in close. Close is your friend. More control of the background, beautiful soft light, and easy on your flashes and batteries. You can't say fairer than that. In the next lecture, I'll show you how to take advantage of this control that we have over the background in order to improve the look of the images. Bye for now.